All right, Oregon in 2020 only played only five regular season games. I'm sure Duck fans are happy to be back to a normal 12-game schedule this year. Of course, they got to play in the Pac-12 championship last year just because because Washington did not get to play. And then you got a bowl game. So they wound up playing 7 games, although, again, only 5 of those were regular season games. This is a schedule for 2021. And before we go game by game, we are going to look at the games outside of the division, because we know Oregon is going to play every one in the Pac-12 North, obviously. So who do they play in the non-conference? And out of the Pac-12 South, well, in the non-conference, they'll play Fresno State, Ohio State, and Stony Brook. Obviously, an easy win there with Stony Brook. Fresno State, a quality group of 5 team, and Ohio State going to be a very tough matchup on the road. Potentially 2 top 10 teams. Oregon probably won't be in the top 10 to kick off the season. If they win that game, they will be. But still, that's a huge game. One of the biggest non-conference games, I think, of the season. And then who do they play out of the South? They'll play Arizona, UCLA, Colorado, and Utah. I think that's a pretty good lineup there. Really, when you look at the South, I think the 3 teams you don't want to play are Utah, which they do play, and then Arizona State and USC. I feel like those are the 3 teams you probably don't want to play, although the South is kind of tough to predict right now. UCLA seems like they're starting to turn the corner. Colorado was good last year. So, it really doesn't matter that much. I don't know if USC and Arizona State will finish in the top 3 or not. I think Arizona probably is the team that you do want to play, and they get to play them. So a pretty good lineup there out of the Pac-12 South. A pretty tough non-conference schedule when you put Ohio State in there. They will kick things off again with Fresno State on September the 4th. That'll be a home game for Oregon. Who knows what the fan situation is going to be. I believe we will see fans across all of college football in the Pac-12. Maybe it's not 100% capacity, but there will be some fans there, I'm sure. And so they're going to have that home field advantage against a quality team. Fresno State, again, is not a bad group of 5 team. A couple of years ago, they were actually really good. So that'll be a good matchup there, a good way to start off the season. Then they'll play Ohio State on September 11th, like I mentioned before, one of the biggest non-conference games of the year. And it's kind of a playoff eliminator game potentially. I think if you win that game, you're going to be in really, really good shape for potentially making a run at the college football playoff. You lose that game, it's going to be really tough, especially for Oregon, because the schedule just, outside of that game, how many top 25 wins are you going to have? Probably not many. So they need to win that game if they're going to have a chance to do that, or at least be competitive. Now, if they lose that game by a field goal and they win the rest of their games, and Ohio State's a playoff team, Oregon's going to have a great case. So it's really not necessarily winning that game. I think obviously that would go a long way, but you need to at least be really close in that game, competitive, if you're going to have a shot to be in that conversation at the end of the season. Stony Brook is next. That should be a win, obviously. Arizona, September 25th. That is a home game for Oregon. So outside of Ohio State, you really like these first 3 games, again, outside of Ohio State to start off the season, and should get them off to a good start. Then they get into the grind of the Pac-12. Stanford on the road. Stanford does not bring a lot back this year. That's a game I really like Oregon in, but it's on the road. So I don't think that's a game where you can assume it's going to be a win. You look at last year, Oregon did win that game 35-14. So again, I like their chances, but it's going to be a tough matchup there on the road. Cal at home. Cal brings back a lot from last season. Remember, Cal beat Oregon last year, so that could be a tough matchup. There is a bye week in between there. They'll have their bye week between Stanford and Cal. Really kind of early in the year, not necessarily before a huge game, but hopefully that'll help them to not overlook Cal or be extra prepared in that game. You don't want to lose that game again this year, obviously. And then they'll play UCLA on October 23rd. Could be a sneaky tough game there. Colorado on October the 30th. Colorado's pretty good last year. We'll see how they look this year. Washington, that is a big game there. November 6th, a game that I think has a very big chance of deciding the Pac-12 North. They're going to play them on the road. Washington has a lot coming back. This is going to be a huge matchup there. And again, I think it's the game that will decide the Pac-12 North. Washington State on November the 13th. Cougars were surprisingly competitive last year. They weren't great, but they were better than I thought they would be. And they have a ton of production coming back. So that could be a challenge there. Utah on the road, another difficult matchup. Utah is top 10 in the country in returning production. They've also got some transfers coming in. That right there is going to be a really tough matchup late in the season. And then Oregon State on November 27th. Home game for Oregon. Going to want revenge after that game, that loss to Oregon State last year. I don't think Oregon State will be... That's going to be a close game, I think. I think Oregon is the better team, and they're playing at home, but it's a rivalry. And again, Oregon State is getting better. This is a team, a program that is not the laughing stock of the Pac-12 anymore. In fact, they weren't even the worst team in the Pac-12 last year. And again, they did upset Oregon. So that'll be a big-time matchup there to close out the season. And you look through this schedule, there are some tough games on the road in Utah, Washington, and Ohio State. Maybe even UCLA in that conversation as well. So overall, the schedule for Oregon is not brutal. They don't have a bunch of top 10, top 15 teams, but they do have Ohio State. They do have Washington and Utah, and those are the three games that I circle. I think those are going to be the toughest games. And having to play all three of them on the road makes for a pretty tough schedule for Oregon in 2021.